Okay, I'm sure you guys can hear me now. Sorry about that. Okay, so I got this new mic. Yeah, no, and yeah, this is the problem I have with like Windows. Like whenever you use peripherals with it, it's so confusing to get anything to work properly. So I got this new mic, and it's excellent. I really like it. It was relatively cheap. The sound quality of my videos has gotten a lot better, but as you can tell, it completely hijacked my entire like my default mics don't even work anymore. So as you guys can probably tell, I am definitely much more of a Mac person, and Windows just frustrates me. But it is what I have. Like I actually created a video yesterday that I think I may have gotten a fact in it incorrect because of Windows Firewall, because Windows Firewall is so picky that it doesn't let any, like if you're using a new application, it basically won't let anything in. Anyways, thank you so much for joining, everyone. My name is Shashank Kalanithi. I'm a data analyst, and this is a live stream I do every Thursday where we go over the world of analytics and any questions you might have about it. So feel free to leave some questions below. Yeah, I was just talking about how I got this new mic, and for some reason my computer, the default mic doesn't work anymore. I don't know why. And I was just talking about how I've always had these problems with Windows where just random stuff stops working, and it's why I'm much more of a Mac guy. Honestly, it's stuff just works on it. At least it's super basic stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and see what questions you guys might have. I have my phone over here. Of course, guys. Yes, and as Paula said, don't forget to like the live stream. It really shows YouTube that this is a live stream that people can trust and people can use appropriately. I'm doing well. How are you doing? Thank you. Yeah, no, this like I was saying, this mic on one end, it's made my videos sound a lot better. On the other end, it completely, I don't know what it did to the default mic on my laptop. I need to probably figure that out after today's video. So, what do we have, guys? What questions do you guys have? I'm actually thinking about creating a video titled something like 5 careers that data science, I can't think of a better word right now, but data science destroyed, basically. And it talks about, the idea is that it's going to talk about 5 different major careers that no longer exist because of some form of data science. Not no longer exist. 5 careers that have become significantly less lucrative and prestigious because of data science. And one of them would be bank manager, for example. So in the US, as early as the 90s even, or as late as the 90s even, bank managers, it used to be a highly respected job in society, and it used to pay a lot of money too, because they had to do they had to deal with every aspect of the loan process, and they had to be the ones with the final say as to whether a bank would give or not give a loan to an applicant. Again, it's a very difficult decision that you have to take in multiple data points and find creative ways to see if people qualify for a loan. And then a bank's their entire existence is predicated on you making good decisions. But basically, since the 90s, computers have made those decisions for everything. So if you apply for a mortgage in America, it's almost entirely determined by a computer as to whether you'll get one or not. So if you don't have a normal salaried income, then it can be very difficult to get a loan in the U.S. So that's kind of an example of a career that used to be very lucrative and respected, prior to the introduction of data science into the field. And I want to talk about the disadvantages of data science being introduced as well. All right, let's see what questions we have. So Suhas Jagdish. How important is statistics for data analysts? Not very. I think a basic understanding of statistics can be incredibly helpful, and I would recommend learning it only so that you don't get outskilled. One thing I will say about data science and any of these technology fields, kind of going back to what I was talking about the bank managers. If you're talking about the bank manager profession, that profession got ruined in as little as 10 years. And that's the like kind of warning I would give for people going into analytics as well. Analytics will be here for the next 20, 30 years, but you'll have to constantly upskill yourself in order to remain relevant, because larger and larger parts of analytics will be taken over by just algorithms and automated, and it just can be done automatically by a computer, especially with the rise of AI. So, well, I think today statistics is not a 100% necessary thing for data analysts. I think it's very quickly going to become necessary, because this is one of those industries where you're either constantly swimming or you'll sink very quickly. So yeah. Let's see. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so Charan Singh. So please share some intermediate data analyst project ideas. So I'm actually going to be taking a backseat with this whole project idea thing. I think that if you're asking for project ideas, you're kind of going about it the wrong way. Your project idea should be entirely your own thing. You shouldn't be asking other people what should my project idea be, beyond maybe what would constitute a good, maybe a better question is what would constitute a good data science project. That's a better question to ask. But the question of what the project should be is, I would just say, the wrong question. And it's a question I get on this live stream all the time, because at the end of the day, the whole point of the project is to demonstrate why you're special. If you do a project that I recommend to you, then it's well, I mean, no, now you're just, you're not showing me why you're special. And that's why I think that the better question to ask is what constitutes a good data science project. And to answer that question, I would say anything where you're able to talk about it for about 45 minutes to an hour, that's a good data science project. Something that you can have an entire conversation around that uses data is very, very important. And so it could be as simple as a very detailed visualization where you're able to go into depth as to why you use certain colors, why you use certain graphs, to something as detailed as an entire algorithm you use to predict, I don't know, cancer rates in patients and stuff like that. So I think the telltale sign of a good project in data science, because at the end of the day, the whole point of the project is to get a job. Because why else would you do a project? Honestly, no one does it for fun. People do it so they can get jobs. The point of the project is to prove to people that you have the skills to do the job. And so if you're applying for a BI position, then a dashboard's a good idea. If you're applying for a data scientist position, then an algorithm might be a good idea, and something you can talk about for a solid 30 minutes to an hour. If you can talk about it for that long, that's a good project. Nikita Andreevsky. Hi, Shashank. I'm 16 years old and from Ukraine. Do you think I can get a job in the U.S. company working remotely in data analytics at this age? Most likely not. If you're talking about it depends on what you mean. If you mean just at a U.S.-based company, there's a lot of American companies that have offshore operations in Ukraine, because Ukraine has a lot of great tech talent. So Nordstrom, our offshore IT team is all out of Ukraine. And amazing tech talent, some of the best English I've ever heard, honestly. Ukrainians have amazing English. It's very easy for me to understand as an American, more so than most other countries where I've worked with offshore assets. So if the question is strictly working with an American company, you can totally do that from the Ukraine. At that age, you might need a college degree, honestly. It's hard for me to comment on that. And if you're talking about getting a job in the U.S. where you're paid a U.S. salary, then I would say you're probably going to need a degree, because H-1B, which is probably the visa you would come in on, looks highly upon education. All right, Devarsh Modi. Hey, good morning. Good morning, Devarsh. I am new in data analytics field and currently in second semester at St. Clair College in data analytics for business. So I want some tips from your field at all. Okay, so second semester St. Clair. I would say use as many of the free resources that your university gives you that you won't have access to in the workforce. So a great example is a lot of universities have access to papers, and they have access to a lot of information on like the newest data science like papers that are released by universities and stuff like that. So I think that's one piece of advice. Go ahead and just download as many papers as you can so you can read them whenever you're in the field. And use your time at university to really stretch your mind and use it as a gymnasium of the mind, because your college is not going to teach you what you need in order to be successful in the workforce. Colleges are just not equipped to do that these days. They're quite bad at it, honestly. But what a college is good at doing is it's good at providing you an opportunity to really stretch your mind and learn about stuff that you wouldn't learn about in the workplace. So for example, like spending your time just like learning about algorithms, you might not have the opportunity to do that in the workforce, because in the workforce, people are really concerned about how do you bring value yesterday to the company. And that's kind of where a college, like college is great, because you don't have to bring value for anyone. Honestly, you're paying, like all the value is being brought by the money you're paying in tuition. And so you can use that opportunity to kind of just like expand your mind and learn more about things that aren't directly revenue generating. Dark Dorothy, I was wondering how many projects are enough? What are the major things that a project should encompass? So this would be similar to the question I answered for Charan earlier. How many projects are enough? I think you shouldn't have more than 2 projects. If you have more than 2 projects, then I would say they're not detailed enough. Like, you should really have only, like, I could see you having 2 projects, like one that's a bit simpler, easier to explain, and one that's a lot more complicated, but you should not need any more than 2 projects. So when I say, like, you should do a project to get a job, it's not this magic bullet that all of a sudden gets you a job. What it does is, when you are in an interview, it provides you with great, like, content to talk about with the hiring manager. And so projects, like, it's not this like metric to maximize, you know, like a lot of this stuff people, whenever you give advice on like getting jobs, eventually people just kind of start maximizing metrics. And I understand that, like, I get the tendency to do that. And I notice, especially in markets that are like hyper competitive, like India, for example, like it seems to me that in India, like the market's just hyper competitive for like all jobs, and there aren't nearly enough jobs in the country for the number of people that have degrees over there. Like the economy is just not providing enough jobs for people. But, you know, which is kind of the exact opposite problem we have in the US, where like we just don't have enough talent for these tech jobs. So I would say no more than 2 projects. And major things that a project should encompass, again, it kind of goes down to like what are people looking for when they're hiring someone in your position, and can you talk about this for 30 minutes to an hour? That's kind of the way I'd look at it. Any basic practice project, find a data set and visualize it. Rahul Aladi, how's the new home? Thank you so much for asking. Yeah, so I moved into this apartment recently in Seattle, and yeah, no, it's awesome. I like it. It's a really cool place. What should be the topics to know in Excel for data analyst analysis? Oof, that's a tough one. Someone else might be able to answer that question better than I can. I don't think I can answer that question very well. I don't use Excel as a hardcore analytics tool. All right, NYW, thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you so much. So hi, I am still in school, and if you give me a super chat, I answer your question immediately, just as a heads up. That's sad. I owe my degree to Indian programmers. Yeah, no, of course. I mean, it's a problem that I became aware of when I like went to India like a couple of years ago. There's this whole term in Tamil Nadu, which is the state my family's from. It's called VIP, and it basically means unemployed graduate, is my understanding. The idea being that Indians are overeducated, actually, and it's kind of something you notice when you go to Asia, actually, because the density of people is so large in Asian countries like China, India, Japan, Korea, that like people kind of society hyper focuses on these like certain jobs, and because of that, like too many people get educated. For example, like not everyone can be a college educated worker of some kind, and so that's a problem you'll see in India and other like Asian countries, especially, that is less common in the U.S., I'd say. So hi. So NIW, hi, I am still in my school for data analysis. What is a real life sample request from a job from your experience? Okay, so give me 1 second. My throat's a little bit dry. Let me get some water and I'll be right back. All right. Sorry about that. I had to get some water. Put that over there. Okay. What is a real life sample request from a job from your experience? Okay, so I'll give you, seeing as you are still in school, let me give you something from one of my first jobs. So I was what do you call it? BI, so a business intelligence analyst at my first in my first job, but the work I was doing was much closer to that of a data analyst. And the reason I call it that is because I actually manipulated data inside databases. And that's why I call that's kind of like my like dividing line between BI people and data analysts. It's like, are you manipulating a lot of data inside databases? Data analysts do that. BIs typically don't. And a common request I would get would be we had new data inside our data lake, which is basically just a SQL database. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but it's basically just a SQL database. And like IT put it in there, right? Like it was like sales data, for example. And directors wanted to know how many sales were happening per region per sales associate or something like that. And what happened was I would use Alteryx, which was a data manipulation tool. You could use Python or SQL to do the same thing. And I would use Alteryx to manipulate the data and create a clean data source that I would then plug into a BI tool like Tableau. And then I would create a dashboard that said, okay, Mr. Director, this sales associate made this many sales on this day and this in this region and stuff like that. You know, like that's kind of that's kind of the way I would like structure it basically. So no, that's kind of like a basic request. So NY, tell me if that was a satisfactory response or if you want more details and I can get into it, because I mean, I could go into like, you know, umpteenth levels of detail. And this is kind of the question that I think is useful for everyone anyway. So let me know. Siddhant Tharoor, yeah. So that's the term for VIP. Yeah, it's there was a whole movie on it. I think Dhanush made a movie on it. I thought it was an interesting movie. It's an interesting problem for society to have because the U.S. Well, okay, we kind of have that problem, except it's my understanding is in India, it's like there are too many engineers basically, and too many unqualified like colleges just kind of popping up everywhere to where like you can get an education in India and it can be from like a no-name university that like doesn't necessarily hold any credibility with anyone. Whereas in the U.S., the whole no-name university is like less of an issue, but the problem is there are too many people with like degrees that don't really like fit into various aspects of society. But yeah, no, that's that's an overview of the issue. The more the better. That's good as well. Okay, well, let's see if I can get a little bit more in depth about it. So yeah, I would create the Tableau dashboard and then I would go ahead and present it to the director and be like, hey, here's how the data works. Here's how you understand it. And then I was lucky enough to have a director that actually knew how to work with data. So I would even give him access to the raw database table that I'd created for him. Like we created this thing called like Keith's Sandbox, which was an entire schema that we created. Keith was the name of our director, where basically he could like manipulate the data on his own and kind of like make whatever dashboards he wanted to on his own. So I would say that's probably an overview of what I did at my first job. Harsha Vardhan, which company are you working for? Nordstrom. I work for Nordstrom. All right, let's see what's next. Trying to see if I can get back on in order. Okay. Okay, Prashant P. Sir, can you check my portfolio I have updated? Could you send the link again? I remember you mentioned the portfolio last time. Hiroki Kaneko. I watched your video on SQL Essentials and started trying to practice on my own, but I'm struggling finding objective-based questions like your interview question videos. Is there a site for these? HackerRank for SQL is probably a good one. SQL, and I see what you mean. SQL is a hard one because you kind of need... I mean, you first of all like need a database. Like you can't really do anything with SQL without like having enough data to justify a database. Like I have a client, for example, that I do a lot of work for, and we barely use the SQL database because there's just not enough data to really justify it. And because of that, like almost all my work with him is in Python, not in SQL, because I just wouldn't have any use for SQL. But I think HackerRank is probably the best website out there for SQL questions. So Hiroki, I hope that answers your question. Asad Ali, thank you so much for the kind words. Frankie Dollar, I would say basic statistics is probably necessary, and basic statistics doesn't require to be good at math at all. Like it's super simple, anyone can do it. I have a video called Practical Statistics for Data Scientists, Chapter 1, Go check that video out. The statistics are super simple. Anyone can do them. You don't have to be good at math for it. So I would say it's not strictly necessary, although I would say it's probably helpful to have a basic understanding of statistics. And that level of understanding does not require any skill in math. Wei Hung, thank you so much for joining. Great to see you. Yeah, I remember you mentioned you were from Singapore. Dark Dorothy, do you need a SQL project? I think that's a little bit unnecessary. Like, I'm not even sure what a SQL project really is, to be 100% honest. So yeah, I think you're solid with the projects that you have, and I think that's a good way to do it. Like, you have one that like shows you're good at Excel, one that shows you're good at Tableau, one that shows you're good at Python. I think that's more than enough, honestly. Okay, so Hiroki Kaneko, it did. Thank you so much. It's been bothering me so much. I moved on to learning Python. Yeah, that's kind of the way I did it too. I learned SQL first, and then I like it's hard to apply without like a job, honestly. But HackerRank is probably the best website for that. They actually have questions that you can use. All right, let's see what the next question is. Parth Patel. Now I want to apply for data science. What should I do about Spark? That's a tough one. Because again, Spark's another thing that you kind of need enough data to practice on to actually like use. Maybe you could learn PySpark. You know, maybe that's how you could practice. Ishan Dundiker. Shashank, I want to learn a stylish Dash dashboard. Could you make a tutorial for it? I might. Dash is honestly not my favorite tool. Only because I think it's way too complicated to get to good results on it. Like building dashboards in Python is just not like, well, okay, no. Let me back it up. I'm kind of like the type of person that thinks that like dashboards, like they can look pretty, and like if you can get it there, that's good. But a dashboard looking pretty is like the second to last most important priority. And Dash's strong point is that it's ultra customizable. But at the same time, it requires so much development time in order to get anything standing up in Dash that I personally just rather use Tableau. So I've used Dash before to make dashboards. I might make a video on it. I'm not particularly keen on it. One, because I don't think that kind of a video would get that much attention. And probably more importantly, because I'm just not a huge fan of Dash as a platform. I love Plotly. But, Dash is just too complicated for... Like, it takes away all of your like analytics time and like focuses you on like just purely doing like building out this dashboard and makes that your full-time job. So most likely not. I won't make a tutorial on that. Nev Santos, what's the easiest programming language for a non-programmer to learn? R. Probably R. My understanding is that that's why like academics use it as much as they do. Abdullah Sanoj, is Python mandatory to become a data analyst? No, I don't think so. I will say that the second you learn Python, you can all of a sudden demand significantly higher salaries and better positions. That's kind of why I keep harping on learning Python. It also kind of goes to this whole point of like, if you were here earlier in the stream about what I was talking about, like this is a field where you're either constantly moving forward or you highly risk becoming obsolete. And Python, like just because a lot of people don't want to learn how to program, it's a tremendous thing you could learn that will instantly make you different from many people in the crowd. Again, not that it's necessary. No job I've had has made it necessary. But Python, like of any individual skill, Python has brought me more financial gain than any other skill I've learned. So, I just put that out there. Shashank Tappa, nice name. Question, self-taught versus PG diploma in data science. So PG diploma, post-grad diploma, I'm guessing that means like a master's degree in the US. That's probably the term we would use here. I would say I would go into the workforce. And it depends. If you want to be a data scientist and you have the opportunity to get a master's, I would say maybe just go, and you can get it without like incurring significant amounts of debt. I would say just go do it. Because you will avoid a lot of like future problems where like you just won't get a job because they're like looking for someone with a master's degree, even though like the idea that you need a master's degree for data science is ridiculous for many data scientist jobs. I can understand certain ones where it's like, okay, yeah, this person has to be like quite skilled, but for many data scientist jobs, the idea that you need a master's degree to me is just entirely ridiculous because it's a set of skills that you can learn, and you don't have to be taught at a university how to learn them. And a lot of universities don't even have good data science programs. You're much better off learning the skills yourself a lot of the time. So I would say if you have the opportunity, getting a master's degree is an easy way to avoid problems in the future. But if you're already in the workforce, see if you can just self-teach yourself and kind of just work your way into a data science position. Perry Gully. Hi, Shashank. Love the content. Thank you so much. And your common sense approach to data. It really resonates, so thank you for that. Of course. I'm a data consultant / analyst from London. Oh, well, great to hear from you. I was in London about 3 months ago. Wonderful city. I've done analysis in Power BI. Power BI is a great tool. Migrations from legacy databases into our systems. I'm so sorry. I hate legacy systems and migrating stuff from them. My question is, how did you get into private consulting? Upwork. I did it entirely on Upwork. If you want to start a whole business, you want to get onto Upwork and then move off of it as quickly as possible, because Upwork just kind of like, Upwork skims money off the top. And I get it. They provide value. I understand their business model and I have no like issue with it. But I'm very much like, you need to get off of it as fast as possible, because it's kind of like a double tax you're paying, right? You pay your taxes to the government and now you're paying taxes to Upwork as well. So I would, Upwork is a great place to find clients, and then I would move them off of Upwork as quickly as possible within Upwork's terms of service if you can. Deja Fu. Currently going through your video, setting up a nice environment to work in. Awesome. I'm glad that's what you're going through. All right, let's see. And make sure to like the video, guys, just to remind you guys. Okay, so Nai W asked a couple of questions, so let me see if I can answer those. So Nai W provided a super chat, so I'm going to answer their questions first. What was the question you answered with R? Did I mention answering a question with R? So I personally am a Python guy. I know a little bit of R. Like I know I'd say enough to be dangerous. I struggle to say I know it, because if you ask me to do stuff in an interview, I'd be really bad at doing it with R. Although I can pick it up. If I had a week to just sit down and learn R, which if a job really expected me to, then I would do it. I could probably pick it up. So what question have you answered with R? I personally have not answered a question with R. I've answered a lot of questions with Python though. So if you want to think, so for example, what's an interesting one? One would be, I've conducted a lot of analyses in Python. So one would be I did a geospatial analysis to determine where should we launch marketing campaigns so that they have the maximum impact on the maximum number of people. And a lot of that was just k nearest neighbors, just overlaid on a map of Earth, basically. So yeah, that's kind of the way I that's one question I answered using Python. Assailant, by the way, can confirm that academics use more R. That's why we use in my research group where I'm the primary data analyst. Yeah. R is really popular in academia. And that's I think that's one of the reasons that companies are becoming a lot more friendly towards R, because a lot of people are moving from academia into corporate, and you want to provide an environment where these very intelligent people can succeed. And so, just kind of learning, or using R in the company is a good way to do that. Palace picks, learning Python draws attention of recruiters if you're looking for a job or transition, at least in my experience. Yeah, that's kind of I think that's the best way I'd put it, with the way Palace said it. Because here's the thing, at the end of the day, once you learn Python, you can do almost anything, really. It's such a general purpose programming language and can be used for so many things that really, at that point, the sky's the limit, There's, you can because then you can start using PySpark to manipulate huge amounts of data. You can start creating dashboards on the fly for free without a tool like Tableau or Power BI, and especially dashboards that allow you to ingest data. You can create algorithms, you can run statistics. The reason Python is, oh, and any new algorithms that come out, they all come out on Python or R or something like that, you know? So that's kind of why I push people to learn Python if you have, especially if you're in school. If you're in school, you have nothing better to do than learn, right? I really recommend you pick up a programming language like Python because it will keep you separate from the curve. And I don't want you guys to be average. I want you guys to be separated from the curve. And that requires, a greater commitment. So. NIW. I'm in a data analysis program, so it would have been better to get a master's. I don't think so. Not for data analysis. And I have my opinions on masters, and I talk to a lot of creators in the space, and then people who are like masters too. I've never met amongst the data science creators. I don't think I've ever met a single one that's like, oh yes, my master's was like, this is the key. This is what helped me like in data analysis. It kind of like goes into this whole thing about how we have a major separation between academics and like corporate America. And that's where I would like say, I'm not saying don't get a master's degree because again, at the end of the day, corporate America is like a lot of times they're just like looking for degrees. But think long and hard and really think, can I do this without a degree? If you can, because degrees are expensive. And especially a master's degree, those things are so like targeted. You want to make sure you get the right one. Vinod Kumar's data science seasonal. Will it become outdated in the next 5 to 10 years? It won't become outdated, but I think people who don't upskill, they'll become outdated. Data science is one of those fields that people get paid as much as they do because they constantly upskill, they constantly learn, and that's why people get paid a lot of money in data science. It's because you trust that someone that's like in this field is willing to learn more and more and more. So I would say data science will continue to be relevant far into the future. It's just a matter of how much you are willing to constantly learn. That's kind of the way I put it. And again, that's the price you pay for a high-paying career in today's... Sorry, let me rephrase it. That's the price you pay for a high-paying career that has such a high ceiling. Because I know people that are in high-paying careers that don't spend any time outside of their job studying for their job. I'm not gonna be too specific about that, but I know people that like they have very nice careers, but they don't spend any time outside of their job studying for their job. Like they put in their 8 to 10 hours, whatever it is, and that's it, and it's not a criticism of them, but I find typically those careers also have, even if they pay well initially, they have ceilings. And so the one career I'm thinking about, like the ceiling seems to start like occurring at about 160, 170K per year, which is an excellent salary. But I mean, with data science, you can get into the 300s and stuff, So, okay, Samanvith Chetlapalli, Power BI versus Tableau, data manipulation and complexity. So that is a great question. I personally believe that once you learn one, the other one kind of becomes easy to pick up. So I learned Tableau, and I learned it first because that's just what my company initially used. And at that point, it's kind of just, Power BI was more or less easy to pick up. So if I were you, I would see what do most jobs in my area, what do they recommend, or what are they looking for? Maybe in your city or your town, people are really looking for Power BI users, not Tableau users. Like that's what the companies are looking for. Learn whichever one that people like in the jobs you're looking for expecting you to learn, and then pick up the other one. The other one's easy enough to pick up. So I don't think I think Tableau used to be the default best answer, but they've fallen severely. They just haven't improved the tool fast enough, which it kind of sucks. I used to be a huge fan of Tableau, but the tool is not improving as fast as it should, in my opinion. It's actually quite slow to improve. They have these like quarterly updates and stuff like that where they add a couple of features. The number of graphs that they allow you to use are very few. And Tableau was kind of created with this like very strict ideology in mind as to like what colors you should use, what graphs you should use, how they should be displayed. That just doesn't work in the modern world of BI in my experience, because I'm constantly asked, especially by finance people, to like display data in like various forms. The most common one is a very specific type of crosstab and like tabular format, which Tableau does not handle well at all. So I think I still use Tableau, and like my entire career was basically like started and like still works with Tableau. I would say Power BI is like, because Microsoft's just kind of willing to give people what they want versus like telling people what to do and release features much faster. I'm thinking Power BI will start to overtake Tableau quite quickly. That being said, I'm kind of the opinion that you can learn either and then pick up the other one quite easily. So hope that answered your question. Let me know if it didn't. Assailant. I'm a data analyst, so we only have a couple of minutes left, so I'm just going to start like randomly picking questions that seem quite interesting. So Assailant, X, I'm a data analyst working in academia. I'm curious, BI analysts work on the same problems? Okay, so no, it's quite different. The quality of data in corporate America, I found, is typically better than in academia. Because in academia, a lot of the times you're gathering your own data, or you can't pay for these very clean data sets from companies like Experian. So you do deal with missing data in corporate America too. It's just you deal with a lot less of it. And because corporate America has so much money, there are maybe like 3 or 4 other people that can handle missing data in ways that in academia, usually people, because like money's a lot tighter in academia, you have like one person handling fixing all the missing data and stuff. So I'd say the biggest thing is that corporate America is easier at the end of the day. That's just kind of the way I put it. Academia is a lot more competitive, honestly. So you deal with lots of missing data, but my understanding is you deal with a lot more of it in academia. NIW, thank you for the answer. I was going to get a master's in the future for my other career because I did not work in it enough. It is architecture. Okay, nice to. Sorry, I just got an email. That's good to hear. Yeah. Again, don't take this as me like saying don't get a university degree. At the end of the day, I think if you have the ability to get a university degree at a reasonable price, you should just get it out of the way. This is more me saying that there's such a disconnect between what universities teach and what's like expected of people in corporate America. That it kind of is like it sucks that we have to pay as much as we do for these degrees. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm glad I answered your question. Someone beat. Luck. Any thoughts on the Google and IBM data and analyst professional certificates? I would. I checked them both out. They both sound like excellent certificates. I recommend both of them. Except I will say that the Google one's taught in R. I personally recommend Python. R is a tremendous language. At the end of the day, don't get it twisted. R is very respected in the data science community, and it's a tremendous language. I personally recommend Python, though. And so that's the only problem I have with the Google Data Analytics certificate. But otherwise, it's a great program. Frankie Dollar, what do you do to stay sharp? So for me, it's a combination of this YouTube and my consulting. That's how I stay sharp. That's what it kind of is for me. I just like study after work and stuff like that. So read textbooks, stuff like that. Deja vu. Does Nordstrom allow you to take ownership of your projects you are doing? Additionally, do you ever get a chance to come up with your own project ideas for the company? Yes, and to a lesser extent, yes. The thing is, so yes, I can take ownership of my project 100%. In fact, I expect it at my level. I would say the one thing, though, is that there are so many asks from stakeholders, meaning that stakeholders, there's so many pieces of information that they already want that if you want to come up with your own project idea, it kind of has to be on your own time. You have to prove its usefulness on your own time. Now, that being said, that's how you get a promotion. On your own time, do these project ideas and then show it to the company and show them that it's useful, and they'll be like, oh, okay, this person needs to be promoted. But yes, they allow us to take ownership of our projects. I'd say as far as how much leeway you have within projects, what is probably a better illustration of that is that at Nordstrom, you can get an ask from a stakeholder, and then there is a lot of leeway as to how you decide to execute on that ask. So I'd say that's kind of where the autonomy comes in. Music fever. Yes. Long story short, yes. I think most data analysts are introverts. So I'm an extrovert, and I feel very much a minority in that way in the industry. All right, guys. So I'm going to be heading out after maybe 2 more questions. So let's see what might be interesting. Okay, Sarah Q. Mangrum. I just completed a data science boot camp and do not have a formal degree. I currently work in healthcare with a certificate in medical imaging. What is the best way to prepare for the job search? I would say really push forward how you've used analytics in. It looks like you have. It looks like you have experience in healthcare. Find any excuse you can to really push that experience. And here's the thing, at the end of the day, it's totally possible that a recruiter completely misses that you don't have a formal education because you have real life experience over here. And what happens is after my first job, literally no one's asked me about my education ever. And even my first job, like they didn't care. Again, kind of goes back to my whole thing about like we pay tens if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for these educations and a lot of companies just don't care anyways. So Sarah, I would recommend putting really touting your experience and really like putting that like front and center on your resume and talking about how that is and how you've like used analysis and how you've built up analytical skills such as being detail oriented, asking questions, asking the right questions, making sure that you understand what stakeholders are expecting and answering those questions thoroughly. Go ahead and talk about how you do all of that stuff in your resume and really push that forward. And I would say kind of gloss over the fact that you don't have a formal degree, honestly. Also, take a look at the Google Data Analytics Certificate because that certificate specifically, Google says they will look as equivalent to a bachelor's degree. So I would definitely take a look at that. All right, let's see if I can answer one more question. Thanks. Will this be recorded for later viewing? Yes, it will. So feel free to check it out later. All right, let's see if I can answer one more question. Hey, Jamie Garcia, great to hear that. Great to hear that. I love it whenever I hear people get jobs. That's the whole point of this channel. The whole point of this channel is to get people jobs. I'm not teaching analytics for fun. I'm teaching it to, get people making money. So that's great to hear. Awesome job, Jamie. What is an interesting question we have here? So Suhash Jagadish, some steps on how to analyze data and clean data. Go ahead and look at the video I released last week. I do some EDA over there, and I have a couple of other videos where I do data cleaning. So check those out. Ooh, okay, Jack Borkowski. I'm a new analyst in the federal government. Cool. And due to IT security, I can only pull data reports as CSV files. I cannot query databases directly. Will this hold me back when looking for jobs in the private sector? Ooh, okay. Yes. Long story short, yes. A lot of private sector jobs expect that you know SQL. So if I were you, what I would do is I would learn SQL separately, and I have a free SQL course on my YouTube channel. Go to my YouTube channel, type in SQL course, and then go to HackerRank and start answering questions. Because the way companies test to prove that you know SQL is that they'll usually give you a technical exam where basically you just write out a few queries in front of a proctor of some kind for like 5 minutes to an hour, basically. So Jack, I would say strictly speaking, yes, not working with databases will hold you back, but you can totally make up for that. And this is how I would do it. Go to my YouTube channel, watch my SQL course, go to HackerRank, practice SQL problems, and then just say you know SQL on your resume. And then when they test you on it, on your technical interviews, you'll be able to pass the technical interview. So that's how I would. So to answer your question, yes, it's a deficiency. And the second part of my answer is that's how I would fix it if I were you. So hopefully that was useful to you. Marcus Pizzetti, do you can recommend a Pandas cheat sheet? Go check out the one that comes with the from pandas.com. Or I don't know if it's pandas.com, but the Pandas website, I think they have their own cheat sheet. And that one's solid. I like that one. Quite a bit. All right. Sarah Q. Mangum, thanks. Okay, very doable. The Google certificate is my to-do. Yeah, I would recommend that one. It's the only one I'm aware of that like a major company says can work in lieu of a degree. So, all right. Matthias, this is an interesting question. Which type of plot library should I use? All is the same. We have a lot of them. Plotly is my favorite one. Learn Matplotlib only because that's kind of considered the standard in data science. So like it's just expected that you know that. But Plotly is my favorite one, and that's one I actually use on a daily basis. But learn Matplotlib because you're expected to know that. Everyone just knows it. So thank you guys so much for your time today, though. I do these every Thursday and Friday typically. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. I usually